I really do ask myself sometimes, what would Virgil do? From silk screening a single shirt to creative director of the brand you idolize. In case you didn't know, talking about Virgil Abloh. Alright, so boom. Virgil was born September 30th in Rockford, Illinois, a city right outside of Chicago. His mom and dad were immigrants from Ghana. His mom was a seamstress, and his dad managed paint companies. Growing up, Virgil explored many different interests. He loved music, he loved sports, and he loved skateboarding. Now, Virgil basically grew up in Chicago in the middle of the Jordan era, so he witnessed on the ground level the rising relevance of the sneaker culture as we know it today. As a kid, he even sent some sneaker designs to Nike. He and his friends drew up concept sneakers and mailed them to Nike's headquarters. But way before the iPhone, they left them on red. Either that or the designs must have been delayed in the mail, because it would be quite some time before Nike came calling. We'll get into that later though. Virgil also found himself fascinated with graffiti. He and his friends ended up finding graffiti books like spray can art and bombed the suburbs while they were still in middle school, which sent them headfirst into graffiti culture with a passion. Virgil's tags included CS1 and Virg. I'm not sure if he ever tagged them on walls, but these were at least two of his monikers. Virgil's parents were down with him exploring all types of art forms, but they always made it more than clear how important it was to pursue education. Virgil was attending Boylan Catholic High School, where he played soccer. He also began to DJ high school and college parties around this time. He graduated high school in 1998 and enrolled in the civil engineering program at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And do you know who else would later go to Wisconsin? Oh, nobody. Just another legend, Jonathan Taylor. Leave it up to me to find a way to bring up JT when we're talking about Virgil Abloh. But back to Virg. He always knew that he didn't want to be an engineer, but he still copped up on that degree in 2002. He did it as a way to repay his dad, who he felt had worked so hard he had to make his dream come true. Ironically, he went back to school, to the Illinois Institute of Technology. He pursued his master's there in architecture. Somewhere during his time at IIT, Virgil went knee-deep into streetwear culture, which caused him to hit the highway. He started making trips to New York just to shop at the local stores and survey the scene. And before long, he started to be a familiar face, and eventually started making connections. Virgil bought Adobe Suite for his architecture classes. One of his professors gave him the idea to use it outside of architecture, so he started learning 3D programs. And this is how he got into making t-shirts. In a natural progression, Virgil decided to start his first brand. And he was super successful. End of story. Nah, it wasn't that easy. Now when we think of Virgil Abloh's first brand, those at least familiar with him think of Pyrex Vision. But technically, Virgil's first look was called Fort Home. He made that first design on Adobe Illustrator, and his version only had one font. So yeah, Edwardian script it was, for the win though. Not quite with Fort Home, but all the pieces are important. If not for Fort Home, we probably wouldn't have gotten Off-White. How? Glad you asked. Virgil sent his designs to Custom Kings, which was a local t-shirt printing shop. His designs were so on point with the way they were formatted, it really impressed the shop's employees, and they offered him a job. And literally a few weeks later, who walks through the door? Don C. He was looking for somebody to help him design some shirts. And of course he was rocking with young Virgil's stuff, so they linked to work together. Don C. then hooked Virgil up with the man next to the man, John Monopoly. Well, he just happened to be managing a guy at the time, who some say is a musical genius. Very humble guy. Has a couple of streams on Spotify. Nothing major. You probably never heard of him. He goes by the name of Kanye West. Now apparently, Virgil was down for the cause like C Murder was for No Limit. Dun 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 dun. He skipped his graduation to meet with John Monopoly. And of course after that he met the plug, Jesus himself. I know he wasn't called Jesus yet, I'm trying to make a point. Whatever, stop interrupting me. Virgil and Kanye hit it off from day one and started working on like 20 projects immediately. And one of the first was designing for the Glow in the Dark tour, which was the tour for Kanye's album Graduation. This is when they began to lock in on the love that they both shared. Fashion. They decided they would make their mark in the world of luxury fashion. And the rest is history, right? Well, yeah, but not just yet. They would eventually meet with a woman named Louise Wilson in 2009. Louise was then the head of the master's program at Central St. Martin's Design School. They asked her for help, and she said in her best Napoleon Dynamite voice, "You guys are idiots." Nah, I'm kinda joking, but I'm kinda serious. What she did say was, "You guys are idiots, you know more than my students. Why in the world would you want to go to fashion school?" They both kinda concluded that she was right and set their sights elsewhere, which ended up leading to an internship at Fendi. They didn't do a ton of hands-on work there, and they only got paid $1.25 a week. But the most important thing was definitely ending up on the radar of Michael Burke, who was then Fendi's chairman and CEO. Burke was on the record as saying, "They brought a whole new vibe to the studio and were disruptive in the best way." From that point on, he always kept an eye on Virgil. That year, Virgil and Kanye would make their first run at Paris Fashion Week. Now this is like a year after 808s and Heartbreak, so by this time Kanye was a pretty legit star. He and Virgil still felt that they were treated like outsiders, despite some high-profile fashion collabs. Now you can imagine these guys running through Paris. Even though they felt like outsiders, they were going to let the fashion world know that they had arrived. It was here that they took the now famous picture, taken outside of the Comme des Garçons show. And the gang's all here. There was Don C, who would go on to found the brand Just Don, Taz Arnold, the creator of Tisa, Chris Julian, the founder of Fruition, Kanye, the Louis Vuitton Don West, Farnsworth Bentley, the fashion figurehead who we first met as Puff's assistant, and last but not least, Virgil. Now keep in mind that this was 2009. People were not dressing like this at the time. Years later, the entire culture will be mimicking these looks. Virgil was wearing a Montclair puffer vest. That's literally like the drill rapper uniform these days. Montclair vest? Check. Pooh Shiesty mask? Check. Girl cut jeans? Check. Glock with a switch? Check. Now I could go outside. Nah, but this pic created a lot of buzz. They even did a parody on South Park. Later in 2009, he and Don C launched a retail store called the RSVP Gallery located in Chicago. Next, Virgil was on the brink of some of his most transformative work. He acted as art director for what many say is Kanye's greatest album. I have it third behind College Dropout and Graduation. But that's neither here nor there. 2010's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. The two of them flew to Oahu, Hawaii, and in the most Kanye thing possible, he rented an entire recording studio 24 hours a day for a few months straight. Virgil was front seat for the entire process. Here, he began to build relationships with hip-hop heavyweights like RZA, Nicki Minaj, Kid Cudi, and Pusha T. Ugh. Push would later say that Virgil was always around, and he was pulling every reference under the sun from his computer. Architecture, fashion. His laptop was like a library of everything that was aesthetically beautiful and relevant. As art director, Virgil picked George Condo to create the series of classic paintings that we now know to be the album's cover art. The final version had to be censored in order to be released in stores. Still iconic nonetheless. That year, Virgil also directed the artwork for Good Music's Cool Summer album. Later in 2010, Virgil officially took on the role of creative director for Kanye's creative content company Donda. Of course, named after his late mother, Dr. Donda West. Now by this time, Virgil had already been doing most of the jobs, but this was like, making it Facebook official. One of the first projects he took on under this new title was to direct the artwork for Jay-Z and Kanye's 2011 album Watch the Throne. Virgil reached out to Riccardo Tisci, who was the creative director of Givenchy at the time, hiring him to create the album's artwork. Ricardo would later go on to get a shout out from Hove on the track Picasso Baby from his Magna Carta album. Ricardo teaches Givenchy clothes. Oh, what a feeling. Picasso Baby. Picasso Baby. Now here's a fun fact. Ricardo and Virgil's work on Watch the Throne garnered them a Grammy nomination for Best Recording Package. Sadly, they didn't win. The Grammy went to Caroline Roberts for her work on The Suburbs by Arcade Fire. But while we're on the topic of cover art, Virgil actually art directed for many albums, including Finally Famous by Big Sean, Kid Cudi's album Wizard, Long Live ASAP by A$AP Rocky, Kanye's 2013 album Yeezus, Lil Wayne's I Am Not a Human Being 2, Love Is Rage 2 by Lil Uzi Vert, and Pray for Paris by Westside Gunn. I must note too that in June 2020, Virgil released his design for Pop Smoke's posthumous debut, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon. The design was met with side eyes and criticism. It would almost immediately be scrapped and replaced. I mean, you know, players F up too. Virgil's next fashion music moment materialized out of nowhere. In the middle of the Watch the Throne tour while in London. I know it would have been a better story if they were in Paris, but they weren't. And he wasn't in his other bins. Virgil ended up at the Lanesborough Hotel. He was hanging with Heron Preston, Justin Saunders, and Matthew Williams. They were tired of the nightlife in London because according to them, the music being played was trash. It was terrible. Basura. They decided to bring their phones and laptops with them to the clubs. That way, they could take control of the DJ booths themselves. This entity needed a name. They eventually settled upon Ben Trill. It was inspired by a mixture of hip-hop music and internet culture. Around this time, Virgil came up with the name Flat White and Pyrex Vision. It was originally just a name for himself. Who knew that what he was about to quote? Straight drop, no cut. Only some of y'all gonna feel that. Ben Trill, the collective, started making appearances more and more. The group started as just something to do, but really caught fire when their Ben Trill t-shirts hit the scene. They started handing them out amongst their friends like testers and the low risers. Shout out to D'Angelo and Bodie. And before long, major celebrities like Rihanna, Kanye, Pusha T, and A$AP Rocky were photographed wearing the brand. As you can imagine, this got it clicking. And they started selling small runs of pieces in select stores. This was never meant to be a brand though, and the members claimed to not have taken it seriously. In 2017, Virgil stated that he had purposely fell back. He said he didn't want to continue pushing bad design, which could explain why even as A$AP Rocky began to diss Ben Trill, he and Virgil remained friends and were still seen together in pictures. In 2013, Virgil co-directed A$AP's video for Fashion Killer. Next comes the part of Virgil's journey where most people pick up on him at. Yup, Pyrex Vision. Ironically, much like Ben Trill, it was never intended to be a brand. Virgil said, it was a 10-minute film that I wanted to make, and I needed clothing to support the idea of a team with no sport. He also stated that he planned on stopping it before it really started. The video wasn't just a concept, it was actually the base. And it's filled with streetwear legends, multiple members of A$AP Mob, and the graffiti artist who would later create the cover art for Drake's album, If You're Reading This It's Too Late. The video is titled Youth Always Wins. According to Virgil, the inspiration for the design and name of the brand came from the stigma that people from the hood can only make it out by either selling drugs or playing basketball. In the words of the great poet Christopher Latour Wallace, on his groundbreaking poem, Things Done Changed, from his now classic 1994 collection, Ready to Die, either you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. That's why the name on the jerseys is Pyrex, an ode to the glass pots used in the drug game to turn powdered cocaine to crack. And the numbers on the jerseys is 23. Not hard to guess here. The number that Michael Jordan wore the majority of his time in the NBA. Pyrex Vision got a lot of praise and an extremely loyal following. It also garnered much criticism. A lot of fashion bloggers were not feeling the kid, saying that charging hundreds of dollars for cheap screen prints was a ripoff. Most people understood the vision though, pun intended. and wore it as a badge of honor. An identifier for all intents and purposes. Wearing Pyrex Vision was in direct relation to a mindset. For something that came along and shook up the world like a young Cassius Clay in '64, Pyrex Vision was gone as quick as it came. A comet that shined bright and burned out in its own splendor. Like the line from Encore, grand opening, grand closing. It was all over in only a year's time. Now Virgil was on record later as saying it was only an experiment. So you take that and add that to the fact that the Pyrex glass cookware company got wind of the popularity of the clothes, they threatened to sue him. But like any transformative genius, it was too late. He was already on to the next idea anyway. This idea was a game changer, the crown jewel of his legacy, Off-White. Now let me set the tone here. Around this time in the fashion industry, luxury fashion houses had started to take notice that streetwear was really killing the game. According to Virgil, Balenciaga's fall and winter collection from 2012 perfectly meshed streetwear and high fashion. And if they were going to make their presence felt uptown, he was going to make his presence felt downtown. It's all of them, right? Anyway, Virgil needed an alliance and some inroads to pull off this project the way he envisioned it. He reached out to Marcello Burlone, who would a few years later become one of 3 founding members of Newgar's Group, an Italian contemporary luxury, fashion production, and distribution holding company. Burlone guided Virgil as he incorporated the company and set up a base of operations in Milan. This was strategic. Virgil wanted the world to know that Off-White was poised to be a major player in the world of fashion. In 2014, Virgil released Off-White's first menswear collection with its spring-summer line. Some people feel as though Off-White was really just Pyrex Vision rebranded, and to this day don't look at them as separate lines, more like an evolution. And the first Off-White line may be part of the reason why. The Pyrex influence shines through heavy on those first designs. I personally, rather than look at them as the same company, choose to understand artistic periods. 2 separate lines that both partially fell into the same artistic period. One at its end, the next at its beginning. Virgil would follow right up with a women's collection, because it could. But real talk, that's a pretty huge undertaking for anyone, let alone a new brand. The hard work paid off though. Virgil was nominated as a finalist for the 2015 LVMH Prize for Young Designers. He was the only American nominated. Among the panelists who voted were Marc Jacobs, Riccardo Tisci, and Karl Lagerfeld. And guess what? When the votes were all tallied, Virgil didn't win. I demand a recount. I don't know, maybe he should have put on a hairpiece and said it was stolen. Bigly. On the bright side, Virgil was staking his claim that he was here to stay. Just being nominated for an LVMH prize is one of the biggest cosigns you can get. You get that and you are stamped. Certified. Last time that I checked. This helped him to be seen as legitimate in high fashion. And soon, legitimate wasn't even a worry. By 2016, during his first runway show at Paris Fashion Week, he was not only legit, he was on fire. And more was to follow. By 2017, Off-White stores started popping up. The floodgates opened and Virgil was releasing a sea of creativity. He dusted off the quote-unquote turntables and started DJing under the name Flat White. He started performing constantly at shows and festivals like Coachella and Tomorrowland. He even opened up for Travis Scott during his Bird's Eye View tour. He created art exhibits. He directed the video for Lil Uzi Vert's song EXO Tour Life, and he even started making furniture. Now in the fashion world, Virgil has cemented himself as a force. In music, he had already worked with and formed relationships with its biggest stars, but he was on the precipice of a collab that would take him to even new levels. The biggest name in its industry, Nike. The same kid who used to send in sneaker design concepts in hopes of getting a sneaker deal was now being brought into design. Or should I say redesign some of their most popular kicks. When the smoke cleared, the project was titled The 10. In 2017, Nike announced that Off-White would be reimagining 10 of their classic sneakers. Rarely does Nike allow collaborators to use their iconic shoe designs. And not only did they let him do it, they let Virgil use 10. 8 different Nikes, 1 pair of Jordans, and 1 pair of Converse. Virgil said he was hesitant to take the job, calling it potential career suicide. Ultimately, he couldn't pass it up. But he did it with the idea that he would only change the shoe no more than 3%. When talking about the 10 original sneakers, he said, "It's larger than design culture. These 10 shoes have broken barriers in performance and style. To me, they're on the same level as the sculpture of David or the Mona Lisa." As I stated, Nike gave him a lot of control. A normal collab is usually a custom colorway and or a small stamp. Virgil tore them apart and put them back together in his own vision. And he said another reason it was career suicide because the sneaker community was so passionate about the sneakers. There was no room to fail. During the initial process, he used an X-Acto knife to surgically take the shoes apart, then rebuilt them in new ways. As you can imagine, this collab ended up being super popular. It's not an exaggeration to say maybe the most popular in history. By this time, the people who didn't know Off-White definitely did then. Up to this point in 2017, this was the height of Virgil and Off-White's notoriety. Like I said, the work with Nike took him to another level. And Off-White was the hottest label in fashion. Where most people would be satisfied, Virgil was always looking for higher planes. He released his first EP titled Orange with Boys Noise. Collabs started popping up out of nowhere, but Virgil was about to again shake up the world. I mean, Bundini Brown is my best friend shake up the world. Rumble, young man, rumble. Ah! Let me set the stage for you. It's January 17th, 2018. Kim Jones announces that he is stepping away from his role as creative director of menswear at Louis Vuitton. Well, the fashion world immediately started to speculate who was going to take his place. We would later find out that Kim felt it was time for him to move on to a new label. He wanted to work with a different archive from which he could pull new references. It wasn't announced for a few months, but Kim would be named creative director at Dior. Some say that Kim had been dropping hints for months about who his successor would be, but very few picked up on him. Now rewind for a quick second. Let's go back to Virgil's internship with Fendi. During that time, Michael Burke was the CEO of Fendi. Well, in 2018, guess who was the chairman and CEO of Louis Vuitton? Yeah, guess. Go ahead, guess. Ding, 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 ding. Yup, Michael Burke. And true to his word, he had been following Virgil's career in fashion. So with Kim Jones and Michael Burke both in agreement, the stars kinda aligned. March 26, 2018. Virgil posted a pic on Instagram of a vintage Louis Vuitton trunk. This was like a bomb dropping in the fashion world. At the same time, Louis Vuitton, the world's largest fashion house, announced that Virgil would be handed the reins from Kim Jones as the creative director for the men's ready-to-wear line. Virgil Abloh, a kid from just outside Chicago, USA, had just become the first black creative director in Louis Vuitton history. They gave Virgil the keys. Now which way was he going to drive? Let me set the stage again. It's June 2018. The Palais Royal Gardens in Paris. Virgil is presenting the Spring 2019 menswear collection for Louis Vuitton. The anticipation was high, and the collection did not disappoint. The entire collection and event had a Wizard of Oz theme. The runway was a rainbow. You know, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. There's a fashion house that I heard of once in a lullaby, or whatever Judy Garland said. To stick with the theme, the clothes rolled out to begin the show in shades of black, white, and gray, only to switch to bright and vibrant colors as if they were landing in Oz. Kid Cudi, ASAP Nast, Playboy Cardi, and others walked the runway. Virgil's first runway show for LV was a huge success, and his influence on the line's new look was celebrated, as if it was even possible at this point. His success put him in higher demand. He designed an outfit for the GOAT, Serena Williams. and she wore it during the US Open that same year. He even designed furniture for IKEA. My personal favorite being the Keep Off rug. In 2019, sales at LVMH reported a 20% increase, which was largely credited to Virgil. That year, he also took a seat at the board of directors for the Council of Fashion Designers of America. In March 2020, Virgil launched the Off-White International Rap Video Production Studio. The first project was a music video for Shake the Room, a Pop Smoke and Quavo collab. Virgil would direct the video. Also in 2020, Off-White kicked off a fundraiser titled, I Support Young Black Businesses. All of the proceeds went towards ending gun violence. He also launched the Virgil Abloh Postmodern Scholarship Fund, which raised $1 million, a whole ticket, to help black fashion students. Another really cool thing that Virgil did, maybe not on that level, but cool nonetheless. Inside of his partnership with Nike, he designed and delivered custom off-white uniforms to the soccer team at his old high school. I hope they were good. Cause you can't go around losing every game with the best uniforms in the history of ever. Virgil had done it all. International Designer of the Year award winner, named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people, one of Ebony Magazine's Power 100, and maybe it was all God's plan. Some stars shine so bright, it's impossible for them to burn long. In 2019, Virgil was diagnosed with cardiac angiosarcoma, a rare and aggressive form of cancer. He never made his diagnosis public. On Sunday, November 28, 2021, the world was shocked by the news. Virgil Abloh had passed away at just 41 years old. No one outside of his inner circle even knew that he was sick, so it hit like a ton of bricks. The news of Virgil's death was shared on his own Instagram page with a message that read, "We are devastated to announce the passing of our beloved Virgil Abloh, a fiercely devoted father, husband, son, brother, and friend. He is survived by his loving wife Shannon Abloh, his children Lo Abloh and Gray Abloh, his sister Edwina Abloh, his parents Nee and Eunice Abloh, and numerous dear friends and colleagues." That same day, Kanye led a tribute to Virgil with Adele's song Easy on Me at his Sunday service. Louis Vuitton dedicated their windows to Virgil worldwide with a display that stated Virgil was here. Tributes also poured in from around the world. A few months later, Lil Durk and Gunna dropped a track in tribute titled, What Happened to Virgil? The video opens with a quote from Abloh. "Life is so short that you can't waste even a day subscribing to what someone thinks you can do versus knowing what you can do." The visuals for the video are also inspired by Virgil's work, like one of his final projects, the Louis Vuitton Dream House. They also rap in front of Drake's jet, which was designed by Virgil. And speaking of Drake, he offered up a tribute to Virgil a month after his death in the form of a tattoo. It shows Virgil tossing what looks like a paper plane into the air. Drake said in an IG caption, "My plan is to touch the sky 1,000 more times for you. Love you eternally, brother. Thank you for everything." Virgil may be gone, but his fingerprint remains in the world of fashion, music, and pop culture. His impact was huge, but I don't think that it will truly be respected as it should until much later. Salute to the star that shot from the concrete, Virgil Abloh.
Given this opportunity to open doors. That's why my job simply isn't just to design clothes. It's to lead by example, to open doors and make sure those doors are open. If I'm going to be the first, it's the younger generation that's going to carry the torch. My only real career goal is that, I'm one of like 2 black fashion designers in Paris. Within 2-3 years, I hope that there's triple that amount. And advocating for young designers, building inroads is what it's about. So to answer your question, of course it's difficult, but I didn't do this work for a vacation. You don't see me posting pictures on the beach in Bahamas talking about life is stressful. It's like we're here at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, making sure we're doing the work. And I'm from Rockford, Illinois. My parents are from Ghana in West Africa. My background was almost in a way opposite of the designers or icons that I looked up to, but I wanted to see myself in it. So I've once never, throughout my career, lost sight of where I started from and who I am. And a way to like build that infrastructure to sort of keep that perspective is giving back and relating to like the younger version of myself, or the predicament that a lot of young people are in, so that they can follow in my footsteps. Within 2020, there's a calling for us all to sort of be aware of the overarching circumstances that relate to young Black people in America, but also the world abroad, as like giving the same opportunities to get on that ecosystem of being within high fashion. So Postmodern is essentially a scholarship fund that I launched, raising $1 million to give merit-based scholarships to young Black students, men, women across America. And then free game is sort of for all. It doesn't matter if you're in fashion, doesn't matter if you're in finance. It's essentially, it's a network of those that are in an industry to give a breakdown of how they got their career started in 10 bullet points. And it's available for free online.
Perfectionism doesn't advance anything, ironically. As a creative and as a designer, there's no wrong way to go about the future of your career. The only failure is not to try, and I think that designers, we all have like or creators or artists, we have a natural convention to sort of be maybe tormented, or a little bit of like an inner struggle. Is the work living up to its fullest potential, or is it as great as the work that you idolize from your design idols? But at the end of the day, it's your body of work, and it's the amount of work and the refinement of that work that'll define who you are as a creative.
I'm not comfortable with like a status quo. It's important to note too, originally I was just a consumer. I was the person that was just buying things that were interesting. I came from an era within streetwear in New York, in Los Angeles, in Japan, that there was sort of like great vibrance because it was new and sort of an independent market. And then obviously times are different. So instead of when those brands or designers, those things weren't sort of able to continue, I saw a void picking up the conversation where they left off. And so for me, it's just about expressing ideas and sort of building a project that's sort of tangible in a way.
Heron and I were just amongst a spirit that wouldn't leave it at like a bar conversation. We wouldn't be like, so we want to go start a boy band of DJs, call it Ben Trill, run around the world and make t-shirts. The next morning, we just do it. And often I get a lot of questions about, hey, like I want to do what you do. It's not even about anything else but just doing it. It sounds like a motivational speech, or it sounds like very figurative, but 9 times out of 10, we all have ideas that you sort of just get gratification off of like saying it. We sort of translated that into doing it because the generation older than us doesn't believe that we can do it, or doesn't believe that we have the intellect. So now I'm in a phase of just like proving to myself, but also like proving to a generation that not only I exist, but there's like tons of kids in every city just like all of us that believe that we can create as the things that we idolize.
Who is your Yoda and why?
I have a ton. Picture it like a mood board or something. It's everyone from Kanye West, of course, Pharrell Williams, like Marcel Duchamp, Damien Hirst, Rem Koolhaas, Kurt Cobain, Eazy-E, King Cruel, Radiohead, the idea of that. I wouldn't be into fashion design if it wasn't for Marc Jacobs. Yep. So I think mentors, Yodas for everyone is important, and it has a distinct impact on my work.
but what is it about Off-White that you think resonated? Was it timing? Was it what was it that worked?
It's the same piece of advice that I give, you know, because I want to mentor. I want there to be more of us. It's really about being critical. At the end of the day, if you see it come out, it's going through like a rapid algorithm of people that hate it or think that I'm not a designer. When I think of something or propose an idea, I'm like 20 times like naysaying it, refining it, and then it's out. And now it's after time, I'm building a vocabulary. Like Kim said, it's like I don't read comments, I don't read reviews, I don't read anything positive. To me, the 17-year-old version of myself didn't think that this was possible. So every day that I'm able to sort of like make an idea and see it come out, that's enough fulfillment.
I'm from Chicago. I didn't go to a fashion school or a design school to sort of feel where the shallow end is on like, is this credible or not? So I wrestled with that. Like, are these ideas that resonate in the public that we were doing, making these graphic t-shirts, is that fashion? You know, I know that it's not traditional. And so what I've come to realize is that the modern world is us to define. You know, the definition of credibility will change inherently as our generation adds 10 years onto itself. And I think that's super important in a way where it's just understanding that this idea of offering an update to classic things it's postmodern, you know? Postmodern. Exactly. It's like, I see the freedom in that, and I think that can influence and make more impactful work. Just sort of an honesty with what's the sort of foundation and then where it's going from there.
One of the main sort of focuses of my work is to make sure that it's necessary and important. You know, make sure that our generation is valid. You know, that streetwear is a valid fashion movement. And it's simply that, what you're saying, contemporary art has this movement and community that keeps those four walls together, and it's a very educated system. You make a reference, everyone who's viewing the art generally knows the reference. Right. And in fashion, I want to take that streetwear mentality and put it on the fashion timeline as that same respect that industry gets, the same creativity, and sort of join those two things together. So I think it's about understanding the 2 or 3 generations that preceded our idea in fashion. And once you have a foundation of that, and so art is a sort of think tank of different ideas that are translated through painting, sculpture, you know, and I think fashion, I blatantly show that to this demographic so that other people can learn who their favorite artist is.
Every project I take on, I try to like swing as hard as possible and make it as sort of potent and as good. You know, I don't do a project that I can't sort of grasp around, you know, and I think more than anything, I'm focused on this sort of lineage of work and sort of consistency across different, that to me is more important than a particular project and what the resonance is on that. It's that if I did something in an album cover, a sneaker design, an in-store experience, or a temporary flyer on my Instagram, that everything is rooted in some principle that's signature to my work.
And I'm thinking of all these ideas, and Virgil's able to take all of those ideas and then architect them, because he is an architect.
If there's anything you take away from me and my career to your own story, don't let anyone put you in any box. It allows a conversation to happen without you even speaking. I don't see any box. That's my freedom.